So the first thing is the engine compartment. We are gonna check the fluid levels. The first one is the coolant tank. Make sure the coolant tank is securely mounted, no loose or missing nuts or bolts, not cracked, not leaking. The cap is tight, not leaking. Hoses show no abrasions, bulges or cuts, not leaking. Fittings and clamps are tight, not leaking. The coolant level is between minimum and maximum. Engine oil, we add the engine oil from here. Make sure the cap is tight and not leaking. We check it with a dipstick. The engine oil level should be between minimum and maximum. Power steering reservoir. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked or leaking. The cap is tight, not leaking. Hoses show no abrasions, bulges or cuts, not leaking. Fittings and clamps are tight, not leaking. The fluid level is between minimum and maximum.
Good.
Belts. Belts. Make sure they are not cut, frayed, or worn, and they do not deflect more than half to a 3/4 of an inch if pushed in the center of the belt. What else? Tell me.
Good. Yeah, good. Oh, you gonna give him the papers?
Yeah. Give me the memory aid.
Stop it till he starts again.
Here is the air compressor. Make sure it's securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. It's not leaking air. The hoses show no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and they're not leaking air. Alternator, it's on the other side. Make sure it's securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. The electrical connections are secure, and there is no exposed or burnt wire. Fluid leaks. Make sure there is no leaks on the ground underneath the engine, indicating that there is oil, puddles of oil, coolant, or or fuel. Hoses. Make sure all the hoses show no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They are not leaking. Fittings and clamps are tight, not leaking. This is the steering box. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent, or broken. The hoses show no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Not leaking. Fittings and clamps are tight, not leaking. The steering linkage is made of basically 3 parts here. Make sure they are securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts or collar keys. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. The spring. All right. Front suspension is springs. These are the springs. Make sure they are not cracked or broken, not shifted, not missing. Air mounts, spring mounts. Make sure they are securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken. U-bolts right here. Make sure there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. They are not cracked, bent, or broken. Shock absorber right here. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking fluid. Fuel area. The first thing is the door. Make sure it opens and closes freely. No hot wire missing, and latches securely. The mirrors and brackets, make sure they are not damaged or broken. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. That's it. And there are no illegal stickers making problems for the view of the driver. Fuel tank. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not leaking. The mounting straps are not shifted. The cap is tight, not leaking. Rear of tractor, driver shaft. Driver shaft is right here. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts or caps. It's not cracked, bent or broken, and properly greased. Exhaust system right there. Make sure it is securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts or clamps. There is no leakage, no holes, no sign of rust or soot trails. Frame cross members. Frame, make sure there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent or broken. No illegal welds. Cross members, make sure there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts and they're not shifted or missing. Air connectors. Make sure the connectors are sealed properly and they are not leaking on both ends. The glad hands are locked in place, not leaking. The lines are not chafed, worn, cad or spliced and not leaking air. Electrical connectors. Make sure the connectors on both the trailer and the tractor are not damaged and they are firmly seated in place, and the wire is not cad, spliced, chafed, worn or exposed or burned. Catwalk. Make sure the catwalk and all the steps. Make sure the catwalk is securely mounted to the frame. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent or broken. Same thing with the steps. And free of loose objects. Coupling system. Mounting bolts. Make sure there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. They are not rust. There is no sign of rust and shiny thread indicating to become loose. The mounting bracket is not cracked, bent or broken. Platform right here. Make sure it is securely mounted to the frame or slide rail. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. It's not cracked, bent or broken. Fifth wheel skid plate right here. Make sure it is securely mounted to the platform and there are no loose or missing nuts or bolts or pins and it is properly lubricated. Release arm. Make sure it is fully engaged and locked in place. Kingpin underneath the trailer. Go in there if you want to see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That shiny piece of metal is the kingpin. Make sure it's not cracked, bent or broken and the locking jaws are locked around the shank of the kingpin. Apron.
The locking jaws are both sides.
Locking jaws are these two from both sides,
Okay.
grabbing the kingpin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And apron, make sure it's not cracked, bent or broken and there is no gap between the fifth wheel skid plate and the apron. Sliding fifth wheel. This is the sliding fifth wheel. Make sure there are no loose or missing pins in the sliding mechanism and the locking pins are fully engaged. No air leaks.
Where are the locking pins?
Locking pins are inside, you can't see them, but air can be leaked from here. Now, side of the trailer, landing gear. Make sure it's fully raised, no loose or missing nuts or bolts. The support frame is not cracked, bent or broken. Crank handle is secure in place. Frames and cross members. Make sure the slide rail is not damaged, cracked, bent or broken. no loose or missing bolts or rivets. The cross members are not cracked, bent or broken, and there is no hole underneath the trailer. Trailer wheels, rims. Make sure that bed flange is not damaged or cracked. The rim itself is not cracked or damaged, and there is no illegal welds. Tires. The tread depth for the rear tires is 2/32 of an inch, and for the stair tires it's 4/32 of an inch. Make sure there are no bulges or cuts on the tread or side of the tires. I would check the inflation with the tire gauge at STM. With the tire gauge at STM. Lug nuts. Make sure none are missing or loose, or there is no rust or shiny thread indicating to become loose. Hub axle oil, hub axle or axle seal. Make sure there is proper level of oil and it's not leaking. The spacer and bad spacing. Here they are, right between the two tires. Make sure they are not cracked, bent or broken. The tires are evenly spaced, not touching each other, and this place is free of any debris like rocks or woods. Slack adjusters. These are the slack adjusters, and these are the push rods. Make sure they are securely mounted. There are no loose or missing pins or cotter keys, and they are not cracked, bent or broken. If the brakes are set, there is no less than 90 degrees of angle between the slack adjusters and push rods, and if they are if the brakes are released, there is no more than 1 inch of play if pulled by hand. Brake chambers. These are brake chambers. Make sure they are not cracked or dented. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. They are not leaking. The hoses show no abrasions, bulges or cuts, not leaking. Fittings and clamps are tied on all ends
Where are
and
the
not
fitting
leaking.
and the clamps?
Fittings and clamps can be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I showed him this last time.
No, no.
Okay, the
At,
fitting
at
and the
both
clamps
ends
are
of the at both ends of the hoses, you
Oh.
can have fittings and clamps.
there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Stay there. Oh, okay. Okay, my teacher.
Drums. Drums. Make sure they are not cracked or grooved. There is no sign of grease or oil on them. Lining. Make sure that they are no less than 1/4 of an inch. No missing parts. No oil or grease on them. Okay.
Okay.
Trailer suspension. The springs and our airbags. We have got airbags here. Make sure they're not deflated, bulging or leaking, and the air mounts are not cracked, bent or broken. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts.
Okay. Can we show
Okay.
him that one?
Yeah,
Airbags?
you can show.
It's the same, yeah?
Yeah, those are airbags and these are airbags too.
The same, okay.
Yeah. The spring mounts, U-bolts, we don't have it here. Torque arm, radius bar. This one is the torque arm and this one is the radius bar. Make sure they're securely mounted. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts. They are not cracked, bent or broken.
Look, how we can differentiate? It looks the same.
No, the one on the left, that's the
oh.
torque bar, the torque arm, yeah.
Oh, okay, that one.
And
is
that one is the radius bar.
Okay.
Yeah, rear of trailer. The door. Make sure the door is not damaged. There are no loose or missing rivets. The hinges and locks are secure and they are not damaged. Mat flaps, make sure they are not cut or torn. There are no loose or missing nuts or bolts and no more than 10 inches off the ground. What else? Mat flaps, lights and reflectors. The tail lights, make sure the lenses and reflectors are not damaged. They are clean. The reflective tape is securely affixed to the door and the sides, and it's USDA approved. None are missing and clean. What else? Okay. Then
The door and the hinges.
then make sure that all the clearance lights and the headlights are not damaged or broken and they're clean.
Oh.
That was all the pre-trip inspection. Now we head in for to start in-cabin inspection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There are amber
Clearance
lines.
lights are those ones, yes. Okay.
Okay.
In-cabin inspection.
Inspection.
You stop this recording. Stop it. No, recording.
Record. Stop.
Stop it, yeah.